This is Farris Khan with a little bit of a pregame show for you. I'm going to show you how Michigan can get to 7-1. I also want to give you a full report card going into Arkansas State so you can kind of see. I've been compiling this all along. I did it before the season in terms of what I thought was important. I weighted some metrics, and I'm going to show you all of that, but I'm also going to kind of show you where the areas of focus should be for Michigan and how the Texas game was bad, but is it really that bad when we look at actual numbers and how important those numbers are? Coming up next with a full analysis in Excel. All right, so let's go straight into this so you can have some understanding as you're watching the Arkansas State game that maybe Michigan isn't as bad as we think. All right, so first, let's go to the defense. I'm overlaying that last row a little bit. That's okay. I'll move myself over in a second once we get to that row. But what I did is I have all of these metrics that are categorized as high, medium, and low. Um, I have our 2023 numbers. I've got optimistic, realistic, and pessimistic numbers for each of these for what I thought before the season. And now I'm beginning to adjust it. I'll adjust it after the USC game. Uh, I have the numbers, the exact numbers for Fresno State and Texas, the 2024 averages, how different we are from the averages versus 2023. And then I give a rating, basically a -5 to a +5 for each of these factors. And then I also give a weight, and that weight is based on the importance. And then I give a score. So if we look at this, basically yards per play allowed, um, we are greater than we were last year, but we did play Texas. So, the ratio of really good teams to average teams wasn't 50-50 last year. It was probably 2/3 average or below average teams versus 1/3 really good teams. So just kind of keep that in mind. So this report card is based on who we're playing as well. If we look at some of these other numbers, turnovers in terms of interceptions, we we got 2 interceptions against Fresno State, 0 against Texas. We're averaging 1, so you can kind of see slightly negative there. Where are we positive? Well, all of these factors, you could take a screenshot of this and kind of look through all of my analysis, but where we're positive is yards per carry allowed. We were only 0.4 against Fresno State, 4.5 against Texas, average of 2.45. Let's see if we can get that number down a little bit, see if that can become a strength of our team. Rushing yards allowed also, we are averaging 76 rushing yards allowed, only 9 rushing yards against Fresno State, 143 against Texas. But if you sort of couple that with the passing yards allowed at Texas, 246, if you were to tell me that Ewers would have less than 250 yards, and by the way, Davis Warren had more than 200 yards, I would have said, "Hey, I'll take that." I think I probably mentioned that before the game, that sort of getting to 180 plus yards for Warren was kind of the equivalent of Ewers getting to 300 yards. Well, because of turnovers, that was the problem, right? So if we look at this, what is the most negative? Well, the most negative is recovering fumbles, and which we haven't done yet. And then also first downs allowed per game, 18 first downs against Fresno State, 19 against Texas. That really hurt us against Texas, particularly a lot of these that were third downs that they were able to convert. Got to get that number down of when it's third and medium, third and long. How do we get that number down? One other thing to point out here, opponent's completion percentage, the 2024 average is at 64%. Let's see what we can do to get that number down under 60%. So that's my defensive analysis. Let's go to offense. So on offense, well, actually, let me go to the last line there. That last line, before I do anything here. Whoops. All right, so that last line is rushing touchdowns allowed per game. So in case you want to do a screenshot, I'll just pause here for a second. Relatively low importance on that one. All right, so going back to the other view I had, let's go to offense. So in offense, what is the biggest negative on offense? Well, the biggest, hang on, sorry, next page. The biggest negative on offense is interceptions per game. Uh, Last year, we had 0.3 interceptions per game. JJ McCarthy only gave up 4 interceptions for the whole year. 3 of them happened in one game, 1 for the entire rest of the year. We've already given up an average. We gave up 1 against Fresno State, 2 against Texas, average of 1.5 interceptions per game. That can't happen. Also, fumbles lost per game. We were at 0.2 last year. We're at 0.5 this year on average. So that can't happen as well. I did some analysis on this. We're talking about 4 to 5 points scored on average for every turnover. So every time there's a turnover, just mentally, it doesn't even matter where it is on the field, just mentally think that cost us 4 points, that cost us 5 points, somewhere in there. And then just do the math. We had 3 turnovers, Texas had 0. How different would that game have been if we weren't -3 in the turnover department? I would argue it would have been a lot closer because it also makes the defense less tired. It reduces the need to continuously defend a short field. That whole game could have been different if there weren't 3 turnovers, 2 of them happening in the first half. All right, so what else? So we talked about the fumbles. The yards per pass attempt. On average, we are at 5.3 in terms of our offense. We got to get that number up in 2023. We were at 9. So just to give you kind of an example there of how far we're off from that. Realistically, we need to be maybe at 8. But being at 5.3 is way low. Pass efficiency rating. We are at 110, 111. That might surprise some people. Maybe people think that number should have been lower, but that's this is the sports reference version of this stat. But still, it's lower than we should be. Passing yards, 214 last year. This year, we were talking about 163. We did get to 204 against Texas. We actually came close to matching our average passing yards against Texas. Let's see if we can air it out. And now, should it be Orji or should it be Davis Warren or should it be Alex Orji? I think we really need to we got to decide what to do. I'm gonna go into full screen here for a second, just so we can kind of talk about this. We need to kind of decide what this team is. Is it possible that we could have 2 different systems running at the same time, or 2 different types of players playing quarterback at the same time? It is, but it requires the offensive line and skill positions to be smart enough to adapt to each, or used to adapt to. I mean, they're probably smart enough to adapt to each, but used to being able to switch back and forth. I haven't seen that yet. What I'd like to see, though, is I'd like to see Alex Orji be able to pass the ball. So maybe when he's in, they are passing the ball about 35% of the time, running 65% of the time. But the percentage of time that they're passing, let's see if he can get to 55 to 60% completion. Alex Orji completing at 55 to 60% is kind of like another quarterback, just a typical drop back quarterback, completing at 65 to 70%. So give him the flexibility to pass, air it out, be able to maybe get a pass interference, maybe get some confidence with some short passes that become medium passes, and then once in a while a long pass. But the idea that he comes in and he's just running, and everybody, all 110,000 people plus all 10 million plus watching on TV in the case of the Texas game, know that he is running, it's just not working. You've got to be able to he's got to be able to pass the ball. I believe that he can complete a forward pass. Let him do it. All right, going back to all right. So completing a couple other notes, I talked about the negative on offense. Percentage of running plays is the only one that I had as positive, because I figured that if we reduced the number of running plays, that was a good thing. And actually, we are, for 2024, believe it or not, we are very close to 50-50. 49% running plays, 51% passing plays. I would have never guessed that that's what our team would be. Maybe a little bit of that is the second half against Texas, but we need to get back to pushing that number up. I looked at it as a positive, but really there's kind of a sweet spot. If you get way too pass heavy, that's not good either. Just a reminder, Michigan was 61% running plays last year, even with their all-time GOAT at quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. So what was another example is Jalen Milroe and Alabama in the high-flying SEC. They were 62% passing last year. I think we need to get 55 to 60%, maybe over 60%. And if we are committing to Orji as our primary running back or primary quarterback, then we probably should be at about 65% running plays, not 50-50. All right. And then the other piece, the other one that was positive here is the passing touchdowns per game. We actually had 1.5, on average, we're doing 1.5 passing touchdowns per game. That is right in line with what we had last year. The problem is rushing touchdowns per game. We have 0. We have no rushing touchdowns this year. So those are things that we need to fix. Do I think that that's fixable? We'll see. It really kind of yes, I do think it's fixable. But we'll see in the USC game. All right, I just had one other final page here, and that is the other things outside of offense and defense. So if we look at outside of offense, defense, what we're looking at is penalties. And believe it or not, I know there was some uh, sometimes we kind of remember the penalties that get called kind of at the end of the game, or that sort of thing. But actually, Michigan had an average of 8.1 penalties for 67.8 yards last year. That number is way down, actually, 4.5 penalties. And we're in the 50s with respect to 50.0 with respect to our average penalties per game. So that's good. So when we talk about, hey, the players don't know what they're doing, whatever, well, in the penalty department, they actually are, it appears that they are disciplined. So just kind of keep that in mind. The other thing is special teams. I just gave kind of an overall rating for it, and I said that our special teams are doing really well. On a 5-point scale, I gave Fresno State a 5, Texas a 4. So that's where we're at with that. And then time of possession. So time of possession, actually, we had 31 minutes of time of possession. We're matching that this year. Obviously Fresno State was more time of possession. Texas, actually, we had 29 minutes of time of possession in the Texas game. So some people think time of possession matters. I put it as kind of a relatively low factor, but I am counting it. So what is my score for other? I'm going to kind of go backwards here. My score for other is an A minus. So things outside of the offense and defense, including penalties and special teams and time possession, I'm giving that a minus. And I count time of possession separate because it involves both the offense and the defense. All right. For the offense, I gave it a D plus. You can kind of see where we're at here. And then For the defense, I'm giving it a C minus. So C minus, D plus, and then an A minus for other things. So let's go back to, all right, so what do I mean? What does this mean for Arkansas State? Well, Arkansas State is, we're going to beat Arkansas State. We need to totally focus on beating USC. We have a 1-game season. We have to beat USC. Whatever we need to do in this game to win that game, that's what all it is. That's our total focus. If we do that, you look at the schedule, Michigan beats USC. They move, obviously they beat Arkansas State, they beat USC, they move to 4-1. At that point, can they go ahead and win? That's a quarter. That's the first 4 games of the season. Can they go ahead and win the next 4 games and get to 7-1? I think they can. If they can beat USC, they can win the next 4 games, and then their next really tough game is going to be Oregon at home. So beat USC. I think they can do it. They do need to figure out some things on offense, but the most important thing they need to do is not have a -3 turnover ratio, in my opinion. If that ratio is close to 0, if our defense is getting some turnovers and it's in the positive, I feel like we're going to win that USC game. It could be that Texas was really good, and then it wasn't that we were really that bad. So just keep that in mind as we're going into this game. Everything about this Arkansas State game is, can we beat USC? We have a 1-game season. Till next time, smash the numbers. Looking to have Dennis Fithian on my channel on Tuesday, so look for that as well. Tuesday at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific time. Thank you. Smash the numbers. Go Blue.